I can see the video, that is the virus looking for people at the arm, and people are running for it. So if you run and close your door, the virus cannot enter. See many people on the road from the street of Lagos to Nigeria. When you close your door, the virus cannot enter. So people now start to advocate for stay at home so I can stay safe. That's the most important thing. If the virus is there and the virus is not able to get you where you are, so you won't be able to get the virus. So the next question is, should we even reopen? Have you seen that when you stay at home, the virus may likely not come to meet you at home? Should we really open? Different concern. Some people say, yes, we must open because, look, the economic activities must go on so that we can all live a sustainable life. And some say, no, don't let us open. The virus is there. It will kill all of us, and we don't need to open. So these challenges are there from both parties with argument. But to some of us who believe much in business sustainability, we say, okay, yes, don't open, no open, join the two together. Let us open, understand the risk, then we know how to manage the risk. If we can manage that risk, we can achieve.
Engineer, are you there?
We want to achieve as a welcome back. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Okay, yes, we can now.
Okay, sorry. Now everybody will rejoice because we missed our colleagues. It's so long. We are now coming together. We'll continue to rejoice. But the most important thing is, can we also look at the scoreboard? I tried to put a statistics so simple from NCDC. From beginning, the first confirmed day case of this COVID-19 to April 1st, total confirmed was 174, with discharge 9 and deaths were 2. By the time we get to 1st of May, just 1 month difference, we can see the total confirmed is now very, very high. And of course, 2,170, the discharge is 351, the death is now 68. I'm not talking of the present statistics, just to look at 1 month analytics, April 1st, May 1st, between, see how it's skyrocketed. So that is the scoreboard. This scoreboard is scary, but we don't need to be panicked. But when we see the scoreboard, they say, no way, no, close all the border. Nobody comes in, nobody goes to work. But if you look at the scoreboard and you look at the rejoicing part of it in the first instance, then what do we need to do? We need, as professionals, to understand the risk as business, understand the risk, because we are going to fight a virus we have not fought before, a virus we have not seen before. Those who have seen this type of virus, they were those who lived in 1908, and I don't think we have any of them still living now. So we need to know the risk. When you know the risk, you can be able to find solutions to control those risks. And the truth of the matter is this: when you are trying to know the risk critically, 4 vital points are very, very critical. This time around, a new concept is coming: social distancing, keeping space 2 meters is very critical. When you are trying to analyze the risk, you must also be aware that your robust occupational hygiene practices that sometimes that might have done has to come in place, very robust practices, washing hands, sanitizer. You will also be aware that the frequent cleaning of surfaces will become so critical, because this COVID-19 is the droplets from the case, from whoever has it, that will cause the major problem. If there are no droplets about it, it's very easy. COVID-19, I can say without any fear of contradiction, that it is not a very strong virus, but it's highly contagious. Strength in the sense that with a good immune system, you can actually fight COVID-19. With trying to manage the surface, you can fight COVID-19. But because it's always not easy for us to take our hands out of some surfaces, and that our hands also naturally go straight to our eyes, and it becomes a problem. That is why, to stop the spread, all these critical changes we have to occur as part of our lifestyle. The mandatory use of face covering will also come into play this time around if we want to look at the risk. Going further as a business, you need to start looking at the risk with respect to managing your employee numbers. How many staff are supposed to come? During total lockdown, we operated on a remote working system. Should we now start bringing them in, all of them now? The more you bring them, the more you are vulnerable to risk, more risk for us. So we start thinking of the number. We start thinking, can we maintain working at home? Because if working at home is giving desired results, or if there's anything that we need to do to enhance productivity, can we do that in terms of effective communications, using our Zoom and other IT infrastructures? Then, you have to remember again, your office has to be reconfigured. Bear in mind the social distance issue, so that you can avoid the droplets of COVID-19 victim, or whoever has such COVID-19, so it is one victim. So Charles Darwin has said it so simply. He said, it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one that is most responsive to change. So we must be ready to change to a lot of things that are going to go up now. We must be adaptable. We must be ready to change our psyche. We must be ready to change our attitude, so that at the end of the day, we will understand how to manage this particular COVID-19 pandemic, and we can go back and rejoice at the end of the day. Let's look at critical health and safety concerns, because this is our goal today. What are the critical concerns we should look at? Number one, going to work. We are going to commute, we take transport. Some companies may decide to hire, shuttle for their staff. Very fantastic. While some will not do that because of challenges of cost. Very fantastic, no problem. But the most important thing is you that you are coming to work should know that social distancing in the buses or the cabs are very critical. Do not try as much as possible not to touch surfaces, because when you touch surfaces, you have to sanitize immediately, because you can put that hand in your eyes. You can see Mr. Governor himself using face covering. Face covering become mandatory in anywhere you are, while you are coming to the office, while you are leaving your home. And of course, we have to improve our hygiene practices, using of sanitizer, washing our hands when we get to the office. So going to office, this is a very major concern, that our ways and manners of going to office before, we have to change with the new rules of the game. Number two, we need as business owners to do what we call deep cleaning and disinfection of our offices before people resume to the office. We need to clean very well, clean our surfaces. But the most important aspect, because while you are cleaning, you are controlling an issue, but you're also bringing another risk again into the system. What is the risk? The chemicals you are using. What are the contents of your chemical? In health and safety, there's what we call safety data sheets, formerly called material safety data sheet. If you will have the chemicals, tell the vendor to steal the chemicals for you, put it in Google, ask for safety data sheets of this chemical. It will come out with a document for you, read it and know. Because there are some chemicals that when you use, you cannot resume in the office in 3 days. And you will assume any fumigation, any chemicals, you can resume second day or third day. Don't listen to the vendor, put it into the Google, confirm material data sheet or data sheet of these chemicals, then you can get your result. That result is what you are now going to use to select the chemicals that is best for you to use. You have to facilitate what we call return to work induction. We are going to work in different ways now. Before your staff resume, you can do one online, webinar for them on the practices that they are going to follow, on the safety precautionary measures that must follow when they get to work. Because there's a new work order, things we have to change in the offices. You have to explain to them, and you have to also tell them compliance to these rules are very critical, and non-compliance can be a source of consequence management. Or some of us may not do online. If our staffs are very few, 5 staff, 6 staff, they can come to the office, maintain social distance, show them the presentation, ensure your 2-meter gap is obeyed. Or for construction site people have said it's difficult for construction to operate. I say yes, it's somewhat difficult. However, we can manage the situation. They too can also, in their toolbox meeting you want to do for them, or working on site, you can do distance, social distance, physical distancing for them too. And you talk to them, because when you're not talking to them, giving them the brief, you continue to reiterate the new order of the work, which is the COVID-19 pandemic safety protocols, to all of them while they are on the field, in addition to the safety requirements which you have been doing before, in line with best practices and standard. The same thing, you have to use logic to speak with them. When I say logic, I mean if it is construction site, there's a way you communicate to a construction worker. If it is
Okay, Engineer Badmus, we can't hear you.
our skilled staff that go me now.
Engineer Badmus, can you please check your connection? So can everyone hear him?
Hello?
No, we can't.
It seems to have gone off.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you are. It's back.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry. I'm so sorry for the break in transmission. Thank you. So we need to communicate to our staff that the person you see in the mirror, when you check mirror, is the person responsible for your safety. Yes, as a company, we are accountable, but you as a staff, you are also responsible for your safety, because when you look at the plane mirror, you are going to see yourself, no other person. Then number 4, we need to communicate using shock model. Our communication now, we have to be more strategic, more honest, open, consistent, and it should be KISS. KISS here means keep it simple and stupid. So at the least intelligent person, even around us, we understand what we are talking about. You can see the picture that I put here on social distancing, on how to avoid crowds and handshakes. All those pictures which sense a lot of meaning. So we need to promote healthy personal habits using signages across the business. People can see it on our screensavers. We need to place all these signages in elevators at the entry point, so that every of our staff, they will see these signages. And if you are the type that will allow customer to come in, if you have done your risk assessment and you say customer should come in, then these signages too should be there. If not, it's good to avoid some customers or to avoid customer in totality at this point in time. Please take note. In your signages, you can use strategy that will bring fun into signages. Look at this one that was done by safety advocates. When we say women, it says, it starts for men. It said, to be safe for COVID-19 infection, do not touch men with unhealthy hands. Men we are talking about here means your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. Do not touch them if your hand is unclean. And for the women, he said W means wash your hands, O means obey of directives, M means move away from crowded places, E means exercise regularly but indoors, and N means no shaking, no hugging. And most women are always very happy when they see this. What they usually say is, women are the joy of the world. With women, you can always solve COVID-19 problem. So all of us now need to fulfill the right of women to prevent COVID-19. It's as simple as that. Then number 5, at the point of entry, all of us know this, it has been done before. You scan your staff with infrared temperature scanners, and please, any temperature above 37.3, feel free politely, the security person on duty, to tell the person that, look, you cannot enter here. If it is a staff, please take a serious report through your reporting system, maybe to the HR employee relations, and let them know what happened to the staff. At the point of entry, you must have hand washing mechanism and battery operated sanitizers, where people can put their hands and it can drop and they will not need to touch any system. But remember, we must communicate. Remember, we must intervene to correct people. And remember, we must enforce. Enforcement is very key so that we can have total compliance. Look at a case study here. This is a place where customer comes, everybody is enforced, use your nose mark, and for social distancing, we draw floor marking on the floor. Each person stays on his own floor mark, and you can have signage that looks like this. Don't cough, we don't want it. We don't want you to shake hands. We want you to use sanitizer. We want you to wash your hands. You use communication strategies that we really talk to these minds and set of the people. That's heart and mind. Inside the workplace, a lot needs to be done. We need to institute a clean desk policy. What does that mean? Sanitize your equipment, your laptop, places you can touch, your table. Always clean them frequently. Don't wait for cleaner to do that for you. You do that yourself as a policy. Then let your cleaners always make sure that all your touch points, like doors, like handrails, they are sanitized, they are cleaned frequently. No handshaking, no hugging. We know you are just coming in, you've missed yourself, so the error of checking and unlogging and hugging is gone. So no handshaking, no hugging. All your biometric system, right from your lift, anything you touch that will make it to operate. For example, we have what we call system for us to clock in. All those clocking systems for now, let's put them aside. Somebody say, can we be writing our names down? It's good to do that. However, out of the barrel, touch, and everybody is using. Why not just leave that for now and let's minimize our touch points? Then follow good respiratory hygiene. You want to sneeze, you want to cough, you cough straight like that. No, you cough on the elbow. These are simple things that we can do. These are various alternative ways you can greet yourself. Put on your chest, greet yourself far distance like this, do like this, stomp up. All these are various ways we can start introduce to greet ourselves. People in the past, people used to greet themselves with leg. It is fun, but it's also part of it. I think it's better than we hugging ourselves or shaking ourselves. Please, number 6, let's follow hygiene. Let's make sure that our face coverings are used for the usage. I will humbly advise you can have the right specification of face covering so we can give them free of charge and enforce their usage. We can also introduce what we call frequent and staggered sanitation breaks for all employees. These are not done before. The head of department or the line managers can just tell his team, everybody, one after the other, go and sanitize yourself. It's just a way to bring in that consciousness of sanitization. Of course, we can now look at our canteen, look at the seating arrangement. How do we reconfigure the seating so that people don't face themselves, and you can also mark the seat. And of course, because people may be more than your seat, you can do what we call staggered break times. This set your time, this set your time. You can have space for yourself. All these are just for social distancing. And if you look at the diagram I have here, look at the man here. If that I'm pointing to here,
Sorry, Engineer Badmus, can you check your connection again? I'm having difficulty hearing you.
if you are, okay, can you hear me now?
Okay,
Can you hear me,
now.
Mr. Victor?
Okay, yes, I can.
Thank you, Mr. Victor. Sorry for the break. So what I'm now trying to say is that face shield is also very important for customers that interface people. For example, customers, working customers, that people are coming to meet them, they can have such feet, but they cannot have plastic glasses that can cover them. Now, we now need to limit capacity of people that will enter our elevator. This is also very, very critical because social distancing must be everywhere. Then, now we are in the office. That does not mean we should still continue to do meetings as usual. We can still continue to do our remote communication, use it while we are working. Can do meeting online, it's possible, if provided we have limited number of people. But if people are crowded, it will still violate the principle of social distancing. What if? What if what? What is the what if all about? Because in life, one must always do what if analysis. What if there's a suspect in the company? What if a customer comes to the company and that customer is a suspect of COVID-19? What do we do? The next thing is, as a business, you must have an emergency response plan. And that your response plan must be able to address this type of pandemic now that started. And in such response plan, you should have a place to isolate and who to call, who are those in charge, what are they going to do, how they must not avoid panic, and how you report straight to NCDC or Ministry of Health, Lagos. All these numbers are there for people to use. So please do not panic at this instance. Set up a good system, let it be workable, and create a small place in your office where you move that person to. Those who are moving must be very careful, must be properly kitted, in line with best way to kit, hazmat suit, everything. Just move that person there and quickly call the government. Or if it is your staff, don't call government straight, don't be panic, since it's your staff that shows some symptoms that are, because people are symptomatic, they're not sure. So what you need to do is call your HMO, if you have your nearest clinic. As you are setting up this system, you must have nearest hospital you want to work with, that you have already briefed about your medical emergency protocol. So make such protocol available. They assist you with evacuating the person, and you are safe from this. The truth it is, finally, what we must know, having known all these others and solutions that we have provided, finally, we must understand something. We do not need to panic for this virus. Your panic can cause more harm than good for us. We need HR experts, of course, CIPM leaders, and all the HR experts here. We need to start thinking of how to manage mental health. A lot of HR leaders have started doing this. Mental health issues will come up more this period. Please help us to develop good mental health practices that we can also use to be able to manage this situation. We need to update our risk, the risk that make you to say they should come to work. Having done all those risks, we ask them to come to work. We need to now look at the risk. Should they still maintain in the work? Or we stop this working, or we add more controls to the work. The truth of the matter is, change management is key. A lot of people's psyche, a lot of attitude need to change. So we must implement and initiate change management programs to change the psyche and attitude of our staff to be able to work in this present situation. We must encourage an open and collaborative approach. The teamwork, a lot of approach must come, and it's very, very important. And finally, we need to implement ISO 45001-2018. This has shown now with ISO 45001-2018, the first and only international standard that governs health and safety in the world. We will see that this standard captures ill health. All these issues of pandemic, emergency response, they are all captured in each of the clauses that will make a business to know how to move on. On this basis, I want to stop the class by telling us what Benjamin Franklin said. He says, "Tell me, I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn." Whatever practices we are doing, we need to involve people. We need to engage our staff. Staff working at home must understand what is going on. Staff in the office must be engaged so that all of us will work as a team and enhance productivity of the business, of the organization, and make the business sustainable. Thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Engineer Jami, for that presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Henrietta. Very quickly, before I hand over to our moderator of the session, I would like to announce that you should please use the Q&A interface on your Zoom platform to send in your questions. Only questions sent into the Q&A box will be addressed at the end at the discussion or as the discussion is going on. Sir, I'd like to hand over the microphone back to you.
Thank you very much, Henrietta. And Engineer Jami Badmos, actually, when I realized we are running over time a bit, but let me tell you, your presentation and information you shared was actually so engaging and so much on point. I felt I was going to stop you. And from the comments I'm actually getting from the audience as well, you've actually touched a lot of key points. And one is, I would say, again, I'm actually giving you a clap from here.
Thank you, sir.
For actually sharing.
Thank you.
For sharing that. What I'd like to do is, before inviting Lola Eson to actually speak, I would like us to actually hear from Dr. Nuyebaro because of some issues you've actually raised. Because knowing fully well that Dr. Baro is actually involved in the oil and gas industry, where for a lot of actually what they have to do, I'm not sure can be done through what you described as social distancing. But I like your use of the when you added the word physical distancing. I think that becomes a key issue here. So, Dr. Nuyebaro, looking at the industry you're actually working, can you please actually share with us your thoughts on how much concern do you actually have in terms of being able to implement a lot of what Engineer Badmos has shared, and what are your plans in Midwestern oil and gas? Dr. Nuyebaro, please.
Okay, so thank you for the question. Yes, like you said, we are at work 365 days in a year. So that way we don't have the opportunity of socially distancing. When I say we, I'm talking about people who work in the fields. So there's a great concern about the spread of this disease. And as a result, we've actually implemented quite some changes. The first thing we've done actually is to, of course, communicate to staff introduce PPEs and actually enforce the use of these PPEs, including the relevant face mask, the surgical mask, though we are thinking about scaling it into the reusable ones now, but the surgical masks, the gloves, we have lengthened our rotation time. Before, we used to do 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, but now we've had to change it to 1 month in, 1 month out. And what we do now is, though it is 1 month in, we actually use the first week of people coming in to do a kind of quarantine, whereby they don't go into the workforce immediately, but they actually segregated while we observe them. And in the absence of anybody, any symptoms turning up, people join the workforce and of course, continue their work, observing social distancing, making sure they wear their PPE, scheduling the way the canteen is used so that at every point in time, there's only one person to a table, and ensuring that people maintain hygiene, washing their hands, using hand sanitizer when they don't have access to that. So that's basically where we are. So in terms of this, the people in the office are planning to go back to work soon. So there's a lot more that's been planned in that regard as well. But I'll stop here for now.
Thank you very much. And okay, I know that, so I know you're actually waiting eagerly to actually get involved. So now, please, now having listened to Engineer Jamiu and Dr. Barrow, so can you give us from a people advisory perspective, from you and from EY, what would you be actually saying to your clients? What kind of advice are you already giving to organizations in order to actually curb the spread and also to ensure that one, productivity is actually not physically, hindered? So, and Lola, can we please have your thoughts?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. First, let me just say thank you to Engineer Badman for that great context.
Thank you so much.
A lot of the work, so it just makes it easy to just build onto that. So I just want to quickly speak to some of the statistics, and then of course I must appreciate the Institute for, as usual, being a step ahead in terms of getting us ready, because the statistics I'm about to speak to would obviously show why this webinar is timely and very helpful. So we did, so it was just concluded its Human Capital Resilience Survey. So the data I'm speaking to would be for 2020, and it involved 300 organizations. So generally from the poll, we found out that 72% of organizations believe that the impact of COVID-19 would exceed at least the next 6 months. So that means that in terms of moving to work, yes, we're talking about moving to work in terms of 2 weeks time or whatever it is, but there's still a long-term plan involved. The stats also sort of spoke to the fact that less than 35% are prepared to deal with any escalation in this crisis. Of course, that again speaks to the slides the engineer shared about the jump in the numbers just 1 month apart. And as we can see from some of the scenes from Lagos and the metropolis in terms of the relaxing of the lockdown, the escalation of people rushing out the banking halls. So it's a very scary prospect in terms of what is possible, what is a possible outcome. But again, we're encouraged by engineers' presentation. And then the third point I just want to stress from that survey is that less than 10% have actually undertaken contingency and scenario planning. So you can see why this webinar is useful and timely. So just to speak quickly, just add to what engineer has taken us through. I think for me, I'd like to segment the focus areas for the return on 6 clear areas. One would be how HR continues.
Sorry, Lola, can you just adjust your camera, please? We really can't, we can't see your face.
Apologies.
That's much better. Thank you.
Thank you. So this home office, my home office keeps changing, obviously, because everyone's still working from home. Apologies. So I think for me, I'd like to just stress 6 key areas where we should be thinking of. So one is, how can HR continue to run what I'll call essential services in light of the realities? 2 would be productivity and engagement, because yes, we expect with the working from home or partial lifting of lockdown that there might be some drop or some lag in performance. But the truth is, we will still need to perform, we will still need to assess performance. The third would be to the virtual workspace. So if you notice, we've lifted the lockdown, but there are still restrictions around the seating arrangements, the number of people that can be in any location at the same time. So that means that for the foreseeable future, part of our HR planning would need to involve how to work around two workspaces now, the physical one and the virtual one, and still keeping everyone involved. Then, of course, focus on development. Yes, these are unusual times, but we must continue to still train, ensure that people are getting content or information, tools they need to continue to work well. Then there's a general approach to management. So risk, I think in recent years, enterprise risk management became the focus. So HR had always been one of the levers, but I think all of a sudden, HR's priority in terms of business continuity has been heightened. So it means that as practitioners, we then need to hone our skills in that area. And then just to add my voice to engineer's point around prioritizing mental health. So a lot of us will come back to work in a few days or a week or so, but there is still that fear in the air. There is still that concern. There is still that, oh, what if I get it in the office? What if it's in the course of my commute? So I particularly like engineer's suggestion around making some of these things, encouraging self-accountability. So yes, you want to communicate the urgency, but communication becomes very important at this point. It's important to make sure we remain self-accountable for our safety. So yes, the cleaners will do the routine cleaning, but you should also make sure you have items to help you sanitize your workspaces. There would be the information around the office, the posters and all, but we can also have teaming events around the sanitizing. So all of those things can be built into self-sustained morale. And then I think a major importance at this point now would be the employee assistance programs. So yes, HR, by virtue of traditional roles, are expected to be counselors, but we foresee that a lot of the challenges that will come out from the uncertainty around COVID-19 would probably speak to areas where we probably do not have the immediate skills for. So it means that we might be looking to buy some services to enhance what we can currently do as HR practitioners. So employee assistance programs are very important now. Some people are working apart from their families. There is that mental adjustment. So it's important that that support is available. Dr. Barrow talked about the fact that they have heightened their cycle times on the field. Definitely, we expect to see probably some wear and tear and all of those. So what is the employee assistance around that? Because that also has an implication on performance management issues. So generally, moving back to work, in addition to all the physical sanitization practices and guidelines that engineer has shared, I think the next three urgent things for HR at this point would be the policies we have in place. Yes, we probably have our traditional list of leave in Nigeria, but we now have to begin to talk about or consider the need for specialized leaves. So our policies will sort of need to become a bit flexible in this sense. People probably just cannot deal with the pressure or the fear, and they prefer to stay on. And the productivity hasn't dropped. So do we already currently have principles in place for that? Some people are stuck because of the lockdowns and can't come back. They've exceeded the leave and all the other benefits. So our policies will need to be looked at immediately just to protect people, because there's that fear of, oh, I'm losing my job if I don't show up. There's also the fear of, I really can't go because the policies or government protocols do not immediately support it. We will need to look at our medical insurance critically. So a lot of us have policies that probably, I mean, of course, the experts in terms of insurance talk about acts of God, things you cannot cover in a typical insurance. We need to look at those critically. Those are some of the priorities I see around our policies. Work from home is here to stay. We would also need to rethink the look around contract employees, asking for, because having tasted freedom, right? You don't want to then go back to the handcuff of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So we have to now adopt that flexible mindset in terms of the policy shift. The next thing will be performance. Because we have this uncertainty in the operating environment, performance management cycles would need to be reviewed. The targets, the milestones, all of those will need to be changed, so that again, people are not dealing with the pressure and stress of, oh, I'm not going to meet my target. I mean, all of those will be embedded within communication. And then finally, the systems. Again, because of the fear, we will see some challenges around increased leave days, sick leave days, I beg your pardon. There would be some absenteeism, and some might just be transit, some might just be really because I couldn't quite get to work. I didn't get Uber and all of that to be able to adopt the safe travel policies and practices. So we would need to rethink the attendance system. Do I have to be physically present at work before it means I am working? And then generally, I think on top of all of that is to adopt virtual learning. I mean, for us as a business, we've seen an increase in our adoption to our training platforms. People are actually learning more. So that gives us an opportunity to actually save or manage costs, at the same time, encourage our employees to acquire more skills. But I think on top of all of this is HR, and I'd like to end by just saying HR must remain the beacons of hope. Yes, we're in the driving seat of communicating the issues, but it's important to keep communicating. I like that last quote by Benjamin Franklin, which says that involve us in decision making. So this is actually one time where HR should not muscle out the I know it all, I know it alone. It's actually important to engage. Even when we have to take decisions that are unpopular, we should engage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lola. And I like that word, HR must remain the beacon of hope. And as we've been having this conversation, some thoughts have been coming to my mind, and I'd like to throw it out so that the panelists can actually basically and expand on it. It means that there's exactly a lot of focus now on being able to deliver a cleaner and assured workplace in order to actually make people actually feel comfortable. And that also means that as companies now basically strive to actually have a more healthier workforce or even maintain a healthy workforce, it means we have to actually do increased monitoring of people. And this could also lead to maybe increased surveillance of personal health. Would that not actually now start talking about invasion of personal privacy in terms of what you want to actually know more about your employee's state of health before they even come into work? And I know most companies, I've been speaking to people, they're saying, will this not affect our desire to actually build a team culture? Because COVID-19 really will not actually promote inclusivity. People are going to become more individualized in the workplace. Can people actually share phones? Can people actually share, like Dr. Barrow said, now in the canteen, it's now one person to a table. So what kind of support systems would I actually build in terms of, I want to share my thoughts and my concerns. How easily can I do that now? So, and to Lola, you raised a key point that, yes, how many people really need to come back to work? In terms of working from home has also shown that as companies, we've worked in particular way because we think that's exactly the way we should work. Do we need to all go back to work, or can some people really continue to actually work from home and be more productive? And Engineer Jami, you raised that issue about all the changes we need to make to work. You talked about ISO, I think I wrote it down, 45001-2018. How many employers are aware of this regulation, and how prepared are they to actually improve the workplace? So can we go back to you, Dr. Noyebaro, on some of these topics that are actually raised? How prepared are you? And how will you build a team if your people have to be separated? What are you doing to basically mitigate?
Sorry, could you ask that question again? How are we building?
Yes, like I said, one with COVID-19, going back to Engineer Badmos's presentation, people need to be actually physically distanced. People actually need to actually be more cautious about how they engage closely with people. How does that impact your desire to actually build and promote team working, getting people more involved? How does that basically help your case? That's the question I asked.
Okay, the truth is, this is a very difficult time. It's a strange time, if anything, and a lot of us need to be learning on the job, so to speak. In terms of a framework, Lola spoke excellently about the framework we should have in place, and I think up to this point, the thinking has been more or less putting the structure in place, making sure one communicates, and this new structure that is in place. But a very key thing that has been struck at, which I must confess that to a large degree, I haven't actually thought about it that much, is the psychological aspect of things. And the truth is, there's a lot of fear in the air, like is highly noted, and this whole new separation issue will come with its own mental challenges. So I foresee a situation whereby HR would have to be working extra hard to make people have a sense of belonging. I can say that what we've done now in terms of while working at home, I felt that we are communicating a lot more. Things that we had taken for granted that employees would spread through the organization by, what I would call some kind of osmosis or grapevine, organizational grapevine, we are now deliberately putting out there. So ever than before, we are using our intranet platform to communicate things that are happening because we're aware that people are working from home and this grapevine does not exist anymore. But then I'm also seeing that intranet platform as the platform that we can use to actually go even further. Beyond just putting pictures and messages, I definitely would recommend webinars from the MD, maybe once a week, once a month, so that people just continue to have that sense of belonging, even when we come back to the office, because part of the protocol for coming back to the office is continuing to have Zoom meetings or internet meetings just to try to achieve that social distancing. So though we're in the office, it could be taken for granted that, oh, we're in the office, so that solves the problem. But no, we're not, like Lola said, we can't go out there and just have a chat anymore. We can't go out there and have a hug anymore, so to speak. So yeah, so that's definitely something that we would further, using the platforms that are safe to make sure we continue to drive that team spirit and drive that sense of belonging so that we do not lose staff to this from this point of fear. One thing we've done is, I know that a lot of organizations have done this. I don't know if you could confirm it, but we definitely have a WhatsApp platform right now, WhatsApp platform for the whole organization. I was looking for a confirmation from the other panelists. Do you have something like that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
so, yes.
Yes, Lola.
I say yes to that.
So we've got varying levels. We've got varying levels. So each team is encouraged to actually have theirs. So my team, for example, we have ours. Other teams, I know they have that. But then we have even the global platform because I work for a global firm. So on the global platform, everything from information to exercise to what have you is just to keep you connected. We've actually been working from home now a bit longer than most because we tested our business continuity plan. So all of those were in place, which has been helpful.
So this is something that I also generally recommend. We had a lot of different levels of WhatsApp for different groups, but now we had to drive the organizational one quite actively. We're a bit like a discal about it. Some people joined, some people did not join, but this time around we did an audit of who was on it and actually went and smoked out people who were not there and ensured that they joined it. So what we've done with that platform, it's become another sharing platform whereby we keep in touch, share information, repeat everything that comes from NCDC, and of course, encouragement, financial and thereabouts. So it's one of the things that we've done to provide that financial support, but to provide that support, that team support, so to speak. But it's something that one should be creative about and continue to build on because it's something that is definitely needed at this time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babu. Engineer Jami, let me come back to you before we start taking questions from our audience. No, you've shared a lot of framework, ideas on actually what we should be doing in opening up for work. How well have organizations been receptive to these ideas you've actually shared? Exactly one thing to actually share with us what ought to be done. How many organizations have been positively open to your ideas? Let us have your thoughts.
Which of the ideas, sir? Which of the ideas?
Well, in terms of actually all the safety and the safety framework.
Okay. Most of the safety protocols that have been highlighted, most organizations are seriously taking them. They are taking them so serious because this is all about life and death. One of the things people fear most in this life, and let me say one of the things we fear most.
I can't hear.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We hear you, sir. We hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
One of the things we fear most as Black man or as Nigerian is death. If you look at it, for example, if you are going from here to Ibadan, and they've told us that the highest speed is 100 kilometers per hour, and the road is free, and you're with your friends, and you're playing music, and you wind up, you can reach up to 150, 200, you'll be happy. But the moment you see the car in front of you somersaulting 3-5 times and entering bush, and one head come out and the person died, you see that a Nigerian will just reduce the speed to like 10, 20 kilometers per hour and we're going gently. So we fear death. And because we fear this death, it is a plus for us this time that every one of us, we are all into it. And together we will get through it. So as far as I know, so far with compliance for where we have gone, different companies we have visited, a lot are doing great things to manage this pandemic. So I believe most of the things highlighted, the ones that have not been done, others will look into it and adopt it as a measures. And it can still have more measures because it's all about risk and control measures. Thank you.
Okay, Engineer Jamiu.
Thank you, sir. I'm done, sir.
It seems to be frozen.
I'm fine, I'm done. Maybe the internet to the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can come in at this point, and I'd like to direct a question to Mrs. Esson. The question says that the use of face mask is now compulsory even from home. Who takes responsibility for provision of same? Is it the employers or the employees with respect to resuming at work? Can you hear me?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. That's a very good question, and I'm going to just do a brief answer in two parts. So I personally feel that this crisis has presented an opportunity for organizations to reawaken employees on their responsibilities towards the organization. So there's a lot of gimme half of the employees, but we know for that a lot of businesses are grappling with the reality of how do we even tide over cash flow challenges and all of that. So I did mention that personal accountability is very important. We must encourage people to take ownership for their safety. What happens if really the organization can only afford a cloth mask, but my personal comfort, I want an N95 mask? Now, there are all of those preferences. Should that really be the priority at this point in time? So if you ask me personally, I'd say encourage people to take care of their safety. Now, that said, there's a school of thought that says that, well, if I come to the office and I don't have the relevant PPE and something happens to me, you are liable. So I think duty of care would be provide what you can as an organization. For example, make sure we've got water to wash our hands and all of that. Make sure there's sanitizers, have the safety sanitization drills in the office. But bearing in mind that the government says in public spaces, so I must travel to work. That means when I'm setting out of my door, I should have been covered. I do not think at that point in time, the responsibility should be passed to the employer. And again, personal accountability at this point is very, very important. You can't make it available because you want to, but I wouldn't hold it as one of the requirements of being the employer at this point in time. So again, remember that is my personal opinion. It doesn't stop anyone who wants to provide it from doing so. But I think we must weigh the cost benefits of what is important at this point. And then remember that the regulation says public space. So once you set out from your house, you should have that mask. So that means before you resume at work, on your way to work to resume, you should be covered. So that means you would have made provisions for one.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. Yeah, Mrs. Barrow, do you want to say something?
No, I said, she's very well said, really. At the end of the day, this is a joint responsibility. Most organizations that I know are going on to provide, but over and beyond what the organization has provided as well, if people want to cater to their personal interest, then they should, to their personal interest and their personal preferences, they should take the additional step.
Thank you for that. So I would like to direct this question to you, Dr. Barrow. What would you advise organizations who have employees that don't have personal ways of commuting themselves to work? What's your best advice for them at this point? Do you tell them to tell those people to not come to work? Or do you, just give us an understanding. What would you advise is the best option? What do you do in your organization, as it were?
Okay, let me start with my organization, then I'll give a general advice. So what we've done is, in terms of our partial reopening, so to plans, it's not going to happen for another few weeks, but in terms of the plans we have in place, the people that we're actually allowing to stay at home are people who use public transport. So the people who are resuming work till we have the curve settling, we're flattening the curve and the curve starts coming down. The only people who are coming to work are people who have their private vehicles, because we've done the cost benefit analysis of people that might find that putting the bus in the road might not be that effective. And honestly, working from home has been quite, the productivity levels have not dropped. So in that regard, I mean, it's hard to make an argument for people to rush out there and put their lives at risk. So my general advice would be, if you have people who are critical staff, who need to come into the office, who have to commute to public transport, you have to make special arrangements for them. I know cost is a problem now because a lot of businesses have lost revenue, but remember what you're weighing things against is cost versus human lives. Not only the life of the person, but the life of the people in the office that the person will go and meet after having sat with 20 people or 15 people or 12 people in a bus. So it's either you're making a special arrangement whereby one of the pool drivers is picking the person is using Uber, or there is if you have a bus service in the office, better for you. But if you don't have that in place, by all means, and the person is not a critical worker, by all means, let people work from home till we have a handle on this illness.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mrs. Esther, would you like to say something as well?
Thank you. So in terms of for example, where we work, where I work. So I think what we've done is, for one, we're still working from home, and coming to the office is restricted for just essential services. But what if you really have to commute, it's now compulsory. If you're not driving, you must use the transportation arrangements we have. And in that case, it means you can travel alone. And even on top of that, you have to then, of course, adhere to all the principles around sanitizing. Now, for some of my clients, what I know they've also done is load shedding, whereby even for their support staff, they've got bus services. So they have like pick up and drop off arrangements, zero public transport. But what's happened then is they have a roster where they agree or finalize who comes in, when, and then they do pick up and drop off. So of course, these have an implication on your cost generally. So of course, it's important to plan and do a cost benefit analysis. And as Dr. Barrow said, productivity really hasn't declined from working from home. So if anything else, my suggestion generally would be watch until we plank the curve, and then generally then decide, look, try and station work, make sure it's only really non-essential, restrict the travel time so that people are not even dealing with the rush hour, because that's also another issue. People start getting careless when there's a rush to beat the curfew. So those are some of the things I have seen and some of the strategies that can be considered. And then I think from an employee engagement point of view, and even for promoting teaming, we probably should consider ride sharing. So when I say ride sharing, so if in our organization we've all resumed, and it means that, oh, we've all been collected, or so long as we're all sanitizing, we're safe, we could actually maybe encourage people who live near each other to carry one or two persons, again with social distancing, one in front, one at the back, but just to make sure there are fewer persons on the road. So that's also one strategy if people must be in the office. But honestly, I think at this point in time, we really should be watching and not really encouraging people to take public transport and the likes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to hear from Engineer Jamiu on his perspective with respect to the face mask. However, I have two questions for you, sir. So tell us what you feel is what you feel the organization should do, or who you feel should bear responsibilities for providing face masks to employees, one. And then what's your take on air conditioners being a means by which the virus can spread? So you're attending to two questions at a stretch. So I'd like to hear from you, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. The first one, who provides the face covering? It is very important that we look at the requirements of the law. In health and safety in Nigeria for today, the national law that governs health and safety is the Factory Act 2004. That is the general, before other sectorial requirements. So this general law, as an instrument of regulation in this country, if you go to section 47 of this particular law, it explains who will provide protective clothing and other appliances to people. And that is the job of the employer. It's not for the employee to buy what they are going to use to protect themselves to do the work for the employer. Even in other best practices in the world, without any fear of contradiction, is stated in almost all, even all, that employers has the role to provide such things. Now, what I now look at it as a sustainability professional, I always look at balancing two things together. If employer feels I will spend money, there's cash flow issue here, liquidity is there, can we do, because when you provide a mask for them, you can make it a customized one. While you are providing mask, you are providing face covering, the face covering is also selling your organization, just like a CSR. You can do extra to distribute to your customers. That will also bring in some little, input, inflow into the business and show that you are also believing in assisting people and you are contributing to the planet, to the humanity, which is very good. Because the law is very there. If we don't provide for them, this implication, if there is now a case in the company and they shut the company down, and in the course of doing investigation, for those in Lagos that has a commission, Lagos State Safety Commission, they will now move in. And you now see some of these, our staff, they can now start sending WhatsApp, social media, telling people that I didn't use face mask because they didn't give it to me. Eventually, this will start giving, start turning to what we call reputational damage to organizations. So let's try as much as possible to encourage all our employers, our leaders to do, at least do that. This face covering are not expensive at all if they are locally made and with good materials that are not really expensive that companies won't be able to afford. Even if the staffs are many, one can still afford at least one. Why I agree from the HR perspective, which is also a very critical perspective, which I said, every one of us, that the person you see on the mirror is the one responsible for your safety. We should take ownership too as individual. If they give you one, if they don't give you, don't say they don't give me, I'm not going to wear anything. No, you too must know this is about your life. So I agree with them in that area too. People should also take ownership of whatever that will save their life, that will make them to come to work and make them go back home. And to fully clear one thing here, there is a definition of what we call essential workers now. We need to know as company that a staff is said to be essential if he must be physically present in the office. That if he's not physically present in the office, he won't be able to achieve anything. To me, if he can achieve what you achieve in the office at home, then it's better for him or her to stay there. So far, you achieve the same optimum performance. But some people in some workplaces, you need to be present in the field or on the field or in the office to make it work. Those ones, they are essential workers. They need to come. And that is the response, my response, humble response to that one. Then the second question is about, I forgot how you put it again. The second question.
About the ACs, the air conditioners, sir.
Yes, there are a lot of
We seem to have lost him. Sir, can you hear us?
theories and information. There is one school of thought. Can you hear me, man?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, we can hear you.
There is a school of thought that says having your AC in your vehicle and things like that can affect us. We have looked at it, look at the risk, we are still analyzing it. However, this is my own humble suggestion. If you are in a vehicle, not only you 3, 4, 5, 6 in the vehicle, and you people are breathing and things are happening, please, you can wind down your glasses, at least allow fresh air. There's nothing you can compare in this life to fresh air for now. So please allow fresh air. Even in your offices, allow fresh air, and you can use your AC, is not a crime, but always allow intermittent fresh air to also come in. That's my humble advice.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'd like to, at this point, hand
Okay.
over the conversation again to Mr. Victor Banjo. Sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Henrietta, my lovely co-host. Now, okay, and Engineer Badmus, thank you for the way you've actually tackled that question, because my view is, as individuals, we cannot abdicate our personal responsibility for safety because we actually work for an organization. And you made a very important point in terms of whose lives is at risk. If it's about your life, then you should also work with the organization to ensure that even though they may not have actually provided full PPE, as the case may be, you should actually be an advocate to actually ensure that do what you can to actually support them in actually what they're doing. I'm actually seeing some questions here being asked about what's the frequency in terms of the temperature checks and sanitization breaks in the building with 60 people at a time. So do you have specific guidelines in terms of, yes, you've mentioned that at the time somebody is entering the building, there should be a temperature check. Should that be the only time in the day when it should be done? People are asking that question. And even the sanitization, I mean, in my building, even before we actually went on the lockdown, it was like every hour you need to sanitize and clean every facility, including the tables in the office. So what are your recommendations, please, Engineer Jami?
Yes, for sanitization, that should be frequent. It should be frequent. We should frequently sanitize. That's why I said, as a business, the line managers can introduce time to go and sanitize again, or if people don't do it. It's good to sanitize because most of the time we touch surfaces. Sometimes we don't know. Our laptop now, we touch its surface. We don't know what is going on there. It's good to sanitize. For the temperature screen, in my own opinion, when you come into the office, you have been screened. Then you get back. Second day when you come back, they still screen you. Or you are in the office, you went out maybe somewhere, coming back again, you should be screened. So I will humbly throw this question if no Dr. Noya is both HR and also a medical doctor. And you should know better than me in this area as a medical doctor. Maybe we can also let her share our view on this.
Okay, so Dr. Barroso, what are you practicing, or what do you plan to implement when you come back to work?
When we the temperature. So I'm trying to clarify what the question is. Is it how often people should be screened, temperature-wise, or?
Yes, that's a question from Engineer Jami.
Okay, so the thing is, how quickly can someone's health status change in the course of the day? That should be the guidance for how often you screen the person's temperature. And as we all know, it does happen that someone comes in perfect health and then the person's health declines in the course of the day. But just remember, it's not the temperature that is the ultimate guide as to whether or not the person is actually transmitting coronavirus or not. That temperature is just doing our best, so to speak, and making sure that people who are now openly ill are not allowed into the facility. So with that said, that I think that check before the person comes into the office in the morning is a good enough guidance of the person's status of health. I don't think there's any relevance of taking a temperature machine and going to people's offices to do any further check. In a situation where the person is now feeling poorly and the person wants to do a confirmation by having a temperature check as a decision point as to whether the person should continue to stay at work or go home, then it's worth doing again. But in the absence of that check in the morning is fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There's an interesting question here that in outsourcing companies that the employees are sourced to a client, that who should provide for the employee since they work from the client's office in terms of all the necessary protective equipment? Should it be the outsourcing company or the company?
Jamiu is in a better position to answer that one.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. For this one, there is a contractual agreement between the employer and the outsource company. There is always an agreement in outsourcing process. If in the agreement it is outsourced outrightly, before COVID-19, they have been working together. So it is outsourced that you take care of the PPE, take care of this, and it will go that way. For me, in my own humble opinion and my little knowledge in HR, of course, we are still learning from our leaders here, is when you outsource, I always like outsource all the functions so that you know you are free as an employer. However, you should have your SLAs, your service level agreements for the outsource company if they violate they breach some of your agreements. But that's my own humble opinion. But in case the outsource company refuse to give the employees things to use, and they are coming to our own office, onus now lie on us. While we are tackling the breach of agreement, we should give, so that it will not affect our own staff. That is very important for us.
I want to come in here. I mean, we should always work towards an objective, and sometimes splitting hairs doesn't make anybody a winner. So we're working towards an objective. We're trying to stay safe. We're trying to keep our employees safe. So if the contract has specified, like Engineer Jami said, who takes responsibility for PPEs for various people, by all means, what the contract states should be followed through on. But in a situation whereby there is no contract, there is no policy, there is no constitutional ruling as it relates to our staff, then we work on objective. If you want everybody to be safe, it's key that everybody has PPEs. So whoever is housing the staff, it's best that they provide PPEs for the person. And like we had said before, beyond the employer, so to speak, the staff themselves also have their own responsibility for their own personal protection. So over and beyond what the employer has also provided, the individual should also bridge the gap for any additional special purposes outside the office or any personal preferences that might exist.
And again, thank you very much, Dr. Babu. And just to add to what you just said, I'm actually involved in certain processes where, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, certain contracts have had to be reviewed in order to accommodate new terms. In terms, for example, nobody actually thought this was going to happen. So in terms of actually additional protective equipment have had to be put into the contract, and the cost has had to be borne by the organization taking on the staff. Because at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it's actually going to be to the detriment of your own business. You may have to shut down your production. So at the end of the day, so my advice to HR and other business is that one, as a business, in order to ensure business continuity, you should put it as part of the cost of doing business in order to actually ensure that your processes can continue to actually take place. And as you heard, we should not split hairs over this. You want to run a good business, it's also about a good, also demonstrate good practices. And now, then we have a question here that how do we make executive management and the board see the business case and importance of investing in counselors, health coaches, post-COVID-19? And it says they would like a medical perspective from Dr. Nuyebaro and a global consulting perspective from Mrs. Esson. So the question is clear. So Noye, they're asking you that some organizations don't have the scale where they have medical practitioners or clinics on site. And what we're seeing is that COVID-19, I gave a paper last week to a client saying, where you are now, you may not have the doctors or nurses on site, but you need to actually look at your medical contract. Does it have provision for visiting medical practitioners to come and actually do checks on your employees? So our viewers are asking you is, what are you doing to actually speak to your board, your management, in terms of bringing on board medical advisors and health coaches and counselors to support your people? Because COVID-19 is not a 3-week or 4-month thing. It will be with us for the next 18 to 24 months, whether we like it or not. So what do you advise, Dr. Baru?
Okay, so my advice in regards to this is the way I have generally approached management is coming to them with a well thought through, complete solution. So this responsibility is going to fall back on the person who actually wants to convince the management or the board of this. I would say that you should, luckily, a lot of consulting companies have come out with a lot of free resources, but over and beyond what the consulting companies have also come out with, we also have our different professional platforms, including CIPM, who have organized this with this webinar, and of course, would also have resources you can rely on. And also use your own personal, network and come up with the kind of solutions you think staff will need in this time as it relates to medical support, which mainly I think what we're talking about now is counseling. When you've come up with that, put up a little proposal and make sure the cost is something that the organization would be willing to accommodate, everything taken into consideration, including reducing revenues in the face of all of this shutdown for some industries. I know some industries their revenues have increased as a result of this shutdown, yes. But for the most, it's the reverse. So when you've gone and found a resource that you know would deliver what indeed the staff need, which is medical, in this kind of consultant to talk to the whole organization about fear, about anxiety. That's one thing you could have. One on WhatsApp, in intranet. I've seen a lot of things about how do you your minds in this time. They said things like stop watching the news, meditate, mindfulness, pray, keep away from people who are actually promoting this negative news. So when you see things like that, you read it is rational, share. One step further, you want someone to talk on the staff, talk to the staff, have a webinar for the staff, check it out, it's useful, make sure the cost is moderate, have the conversation. The next step is now trying to make a place available, like a hotline available, where staff can actually call to address their personal concerns privately without having to do that in a public place where everybody's seeing that they are concerned. This solution, think it through properly, find the costing of it, put together your documentation, and go and do your selling. The art of selling to management and a board is not an art that I can actually tell you everything you can do. For you to be able to sell to your management and the board, it's a factor of credibility that you've built up to this time. It's a factor of how thorough the work you've done in putting up your proposal is and how commonsensical it is. It's a factor of whether the organization can afford what you're proposing or not. So you must have that in your mind. Another thing that I do is that I sell to management one-on-one, pre-selling, because you find out that what 4 people will tell you if 4 of them are in the same room looking at each other based on whatever contracts they have with themselves, emotional contracts they have with themselves, and what they tell you when you catch them one by one in their office is different. So what I usually do is I go and catch them one by one in the office, hear their concern, build it into my proposal. Talk to this person, hear their concern, build it into my proposal. There's something about when you're presenting to people and they are hearing themselves that makes them very amenable to what you're saying. So I think that when you've put all this in place, you have a high chance, because at the end of the day, what are you working towards? You want staff to be productive, you want staff to be happy. So please also make sure that you put the overarching, don't sell it as a nice to have. Put the overarching business need, underlie it with the overarching business need and what this will mean in terms of returns, financial returns to the organization. And I have no doubt you'll be able to sell this.
Thank you very much, and Dr. Nunyebaru. Lola, I've been going through the questions. One actually basically struck at me. Somebody is asking that you're promoting and sharing right to work and everything. But what if outside of work, the person you're asking to give you a lift has already basically become infected? Are you not promoting the spread of the infection by promoting ride sharing? What are your thoughts and how do you respond to that?
Okay, so I'll just speak quickly to the previous question that you wanted my opinion on, and then I'll respond to this if that's okay. So in terms of the mental health issue, the World Economic Forum actually postulates by 2030, the cost of the global economy for mental health crisis will be $16 trillion. So I think it's important in context, we're just 10 years away. The same World Economic Forum says that this year we will see the highest spike in mental health issues. Now, of these two issues, depression being number one is clear. That depression can be from financial to social to even work related. Then amongst our youth, millennial group, who would make up about 75% of the workforce population, we have a growing substance abuse problem. So a lot of people are using this to get by the pressures of work. So it is no longer something we can begin to put aside. But my question and my challenge to all HR practitioners, we mentioned that one of the first things we must do out of this crisis is reviewing all the contracts we currently have in place. I dare say all of us should go back to our HR providers and begin to ask them to provide EAP as part of the plan and the services, and then come up with what that cost implication would be. The truth is, if you have an on-site EAP or occupational therapist, some companies have it, it works, but our kind of environment, people might not want to go there. So your HMO is your first and quickest line of response because they have a consortium and an ecosystem of different types of practitioners. That's one. Two, in terms of tracking whether it's useful, obviously there are guidelines for data protection. So the HMO cannot disclose the nature of subscription of services, but they can give you a record of the number of subscription you had to the service. And it's important to communicate and promote it. So a lot of people, a lot of even our leaders in organizations would benefit from one form of EAP or the other. So I think one is to rethink the cultural approach to what employee assistance means, and then begin to also push the conversation forward on mental health, because we will see a rise. It's inevitable, we'll see a rise. So back to the second question of promoting transmission. The truth is this virus is a very interesting one. You can get a clean bill of health from the infectious disease center, and on your way home, God forbid, you contract the virus, which is why they say you need 2 to 3 medical tests before you're confirmed negative. So remember I said that in your office, if everyone is adopting the sanitization rule, and the engineer did say so as well, that when you touch a surface, consciously use your sanitizer and clean up. So part of before they get into your car, it can even be a fun thing. Oh yeah, everybody take, here's the sanitizer, rub off, clean off. It's the approach to it. Because we must move beyond the fear. We have to eat, we have to get the economy back on track. But we also need to flatten the curve as it were, and these are some of the strategies. Yes, the Uber you're going to be taking or the other ride-sharing platform you're going to be taking, someone else might have contracted something and entered, but that culture of getting into the habit of carrying the sanitizer, the wipes, is a good idea to get the sanitization going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And there was a question asked about, let me look at it again. And I think, Henrietta, you probably need to answer that question. The question has to do with what will you suggest is the best way to handle shared areas, facilities, and tools in the office? For example, cafeteria, water dispenser, restrooms. And that's the question from Mr. Molola. Henrietta, what would actually be your thoughts on that? Henrietta, are you online? Okay, I'm not sure she's actually with us. Okay, Engineer Badmos. So can you please respond to that, as because we know that in a lot of offices we have a lot of shared and we have a lot of shared equipment. I mean, now all of a sudden I'm going to actually be more concerned about moving towards a printer. I'm going to the kitchenette. Can I touch the tap? Can I actually even open the fridge? So question is, so what more can we actually do beyond the fear factor? Even right now, even in my home, even right here on my desk, on my desk in my study, I have sanitizer, I have the spray. Do we need to do more? I mean, you hear from time to time things like a babu corona. There's still some level of ignorance or basically just lack of total, basically disconnect. Are we doing enough to actually get people to believe that this is with us?
Yeah, for organization, if you recall in the presentation, I said offices are going to be reconfigured, whether we like it or not, because of physical distancing. We are going to configure some offices. So because of the droplets, or let me say because of the way the virus is very contagious, its level of contagiousness, we need to always have our own hand sanitizer, because we are going to touch the fridge, you have said. We are going to touch some things. Like in some companies, what they do, all the doors that enter their offices are not locked. You don't need to touch the knob. They are open down, so you just enter, you go. So a lot of reconfiguration will take place. But the most important thing, if you remember I said it, once you run away from men with unclean hands, you should not touch, you don't touch men with unclean hands. And what are the men? The mouth, the eyes, and the nose. So in essence, if you go to free, you touch any area, you need to sanitize your hand. What makes that virus dangerous is that being contagious, because it can stay on all these surfaces for some time and for some hours. Staying on these surfaces is the major cause of the problem. If to say the virus, the droplets fall on the paper or on the table and the virus dies, it's better, but it can stay. So we need to keep on doing that hand sanitation, hand washing. We can get our own pocket sanitizer. We should not forget, because most of the time we have been created by Almighty God that our hands usually go to the face most of the time.
Please, may I just
so we need to manage how to ensure that it's clean hands are good. Please go ahead, man.
So I was also going to say, this is part of the return to work for our common areas. It's also important to put in place a load shedding cycle. So I'll explain what I mean. A simple SharePoint system, for example, can allow you manage printing cycles so that your cleaners have a routine schedule whereby they obviously clean up the machines and surfaces. So you actually have slots where you take cycles of printing. The same way Dr. Barrow shared that they obviously do a cycle around how you use the cafeteria and then one table. You also need to maintain that kind of cycle around printers. Now for our T stations, this is one time where we should encourage, the same way we're doing bring your own device, we should encourage bring your own cup to work. So right now we should not have common areas for drinking items. And then of course for water, this is now the time to use disposable cups. I mean, I'm a big environmentalist. I feel bad having said this, but unfortunately, we also need to manage some of the realities around how it transmits. And then for the toilets, this is also a good idea to now have a mobile sanitization point. So on entry and exit, and like the supermarkets have quickly fashioned out devices where they put the automatic dispenser on a wooden board or something. So that way, people don't feel like they're policed, but you begin to enforce the mental compliance around use these things and get it done. And then, like in my own office, every space where your eye can see, there's a sanitizer. So it's been there, even after the whole Ebola crisis, it was kept on. And so once you're passing, you sanitize. So it's those kind of things. And then I think Engineer Jamu's suggestion of a teaming event around everybody go sanitize would also kind of get people back in that frame of mind. But I think the cycles around using meeting rooms, printing areas, and then banning all shared utensils would be one thing to immediately implement.
Thank you very much, Olola. I mean, one thing I've learned over this period is I spoke to one CEO last week, Friday, and he said to me, Victor, he said, we suddenly realized that we actually don't need too many rooms with closed doors, I think with doors at all. So what they're actually doing is actually removing some doors where they had doors before to actually encourage free movement as they plan to actually come back into the office. So like we've actually seen, COVID-19 has actually helped a lot of companies that never subscribed to the concept of open plan office concept to actually now embrace it as a way of reducing the need to actually touch too many surfaces. So they're actually making that particular adjustment to their workspace. And one question that just came up again is, in the last few days, we've seen the way crowds have actually basically besieged public places like banking premises, banking halls. And that actually raises a concern for some of my friends in banking that what more can they do to protect their employees in these organizations? I mean, we've seen some of them actually putting them in like full PPE to protect them. Is that enough? Or is it a case of what else would you do? So Lola, if you're actually a banking CEO today, what will you actually do to promote safety for your people and also ensure that your business processes do not suffer and bank deposits do not drop? What would you do? I'm sure you have some banks that you advise at the moment.
So, I mean, I'm speaking in my own personal opinion now and from information we've shared on our webinars. So I think the same way all of us are getting used to the new normal, I think for the banks, it's important to strengthen their digital platforms. There's a particular bank that before all of this started, they had shut down a lot of their physical platforms and started spending on digital. And so pushing people or pushing the message of convenience. And then I think most importantly, and this is across everyone, is education. If we look at how immunization was promoted in the 80s, how people got on board using community educators and the likes, it is important to stress that message. A lot of people right now don't know that they can do all of these things in their bank. So that's actually a message for the banks to say, look, you need to spend more on education, spend more incentivizing your customers to use the alternative channels. So if you tell me, for example, that you waive withdrawal fees or things of that sort, it would encourage people to move away from there, because the truth is, anyone who contracts the virus in the line of service, and it can be proven, the employer is actually liable in that sense, because I got it in the line of work. And so the other benefits that accrue to endangerment in the course of work would apply. The second thing for people is to also, let's relook, what are people coming to do in the bank exactly? And that's where data is also key. We say data is the new oil. Is it just regular banking services, or is it that the other platforms they have failed? So this is actually one time that banks need to step up their education, step up the promotion around what else you can do with your bank digitally and virtually, give people something for actually not coming into the banking halls, and then actually use that data to begin to modify the business to be in line with the requirements of the new normal. Those would be my contributions.
Okay. And thank you very much, Lola. And Dr. Nuyeba, our time is almost up, but I'd like you to actually give your closing thoughts before we actually end this session, please.
Okay, so my closing thoughts is this. The decision that lots of companies or the nation has made to say that people should go back to work, as we all know, is more economic than anything else. Because this decision is a decision that we hope that will be made at the time at which we'll actually have not only flattened the curve, but we actually start seeing a steep decline in the infection. So, but this decision for economic reasons is now being made earlier. So we know that the risk out there is really high. And personally, we have a responsibility towards protecting ourselves. But as HR individuals, we have a responsibility actually towards actually protecting people. So I think it should be taken with the utmost seriousness. It's wonderful that CIPM has organized this seminar so that we can get everything we want out of it, but at least in the conversations that have been had, it's provided a lot of thinking points that all of us should now go and elaborate on. And I urge everyone to go and do some deep thinking about this and only make decision of bringing people to work only when you know you can protect them. Because, God forbid, we hope that none of us will see a situation where people come back to work and weeks into work, we are talking about losing one person or the other. So have that at the back of your mind when you're doing your planning. That will definitely help you do a very thorough work on it. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Nuyeba. And Engineer Badmus, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with you, sir. I'm on ground.
Okay, I know that I can see the smile on your face, but I'm sure this has been a good time for you. Your industry has become more, basically people have come to you because this is something you've been saying for a long time in terms of the importance of safety in the workplace. I know most times people don't listen. Now, so what are your final words for us? Because there's this doomsday scenario that this lockdown would lead to a major spike in the infections. So what are your final words to us as we go out there plan to return to the workplace?
On the latter, just as you have said, for every risk in life, there is always opportunities. That is why you see risk, there is opportunities there that will come up. And not only health and safety professionals, all those who are making masks now, they are very happy now that at least we have some jobs to do. Some tailors who have not gotten job to sew Christmas clothes, a layer clothes, Muslim festival clothes, they are now sewing masks and they are all very happy. My final note is number one, our awareness as a nation is still very poor on this COVID-19. That was why when they opened banks, as a matter of fact, I was asking myself, what are people doing in banks that they are fighting this way, despite that they know of this COVID-19? So what that tells me is that people are not really so much aware at that grassroots level. I'm seeing it, or they don't believe it, or they think it's not seen that it's so serious. So we need to improve our awareness vis-a-vis at least showing some videos of some people that have died or things like that that we make. But again, that will scare people. That's my challenge. But we need to create more awareness, persuasive mechanism to tell people to be able to follow basic safety hygiene principles and standards. Finally, I love this particular statement, the mantra that says, be patient so as not to be a patient. If our people are patient, you do what we call social distancing, you stand, you go in one after the other to shopping mall, you are patient. You will not become a patient at the end of the day for COVID-19. That's my final advice.
Thank you very much, Indian Badmus. Lola, do you have Lola, any final words before I invite Henrietta to actually basically thank us all for being part of this webinar? So Lola is on.
Thank you very much. So one is to, again, thank the panelists. I have learned a lot. And then CIPM, of course, for putting this together. Then for my practitioner colleagues and myself, is really just to encourage us to hold on to the lessons from the myth of the phoenix bed. So just a quick summary, a phoenix is a bird that is able to regenerate itself. It goes through ashes, it comes out again. So that means these times are with us for a reason. It's important to focus on the lessons and remain hopeful that this will pass. But most importantly, while we take those decisions around cost cutting and all of that, remember that what will determine your success or longevity as an organization, how we handled COVID-19 is going to be one of the yardsticks. So empathy is key, respect for the individual is key, hope is key, and most importantly, let's continue to share knowledge and collaborate. Thank you very much, and we should all continue to keep safe.
Thank you very much. And okay, Henrietta, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, sir. But just before I do the vote of thanks, I'd also like to hear a few words of closing from you.
For me, okay, thank you very much. And Engineer Jamil Badmus, ED Strategy, the Safety Advocates, I'd like to thank you very much for your really thought-provoking presentation.
It's my pleasure, sir.
You shared with us thoughts. I'm actually living here with a good understanding of what you mean by the shock model, which is about being strategic, being honest, being open and consistent. And then, of course, KISS. I mean, to me, that's actually a very powerful message to take away from here. And that video you started with talking about the importance of staying at home, behind closed doors, keeps you safe. I really actually basically love that as well. And Dr. Nuyebaro, thank you very much for the, what I call the powerful insight from the industry perspective on what you've actually raised as the major concerns as you plan to open up, and also some of the novel things you've actually done with your leadership in actually preparing to actually ensure a safe workplace for you, your team members, and for them, and also to address the concern that because of the change in their rotation, also take in consideration how that would also affect the family members as well. For example, a spouse that's already used to seeing the husband or wife every 2 weeks now has to actually wait for a 28-day cycle. So thank you very much for that insight as well, and for all the concerns about how to handle the mental aspect of the individual as well. And Lola, so once again, thank you very much for the what I call very, very clear and succinct and contribution as well, and also the great advice in terms of how we can actually manage this, and we should avoid a doomsday mentality, because one, this is not the first time the world has been faced with what I call it basically outbreak and epidemic or pandemic. As you know, WHO, they have a way of classifying the different the different sicknesses. But the point is, together as long as we all come together to basically work as a unit, even though there's things we should, as we stay physically distanced, we should stay intellectually connected, and we also stay emotionally connected and say, what more can I do to actually help my neighbor? And while you're away from work, are you calling your people every day? Something I've actually been doing is in my workplace on a day-to-day basis, we do what is called the daily huddle. At 9 o'clock, whether or not we have any calls, we would actually come onto Microsoft Teams just to say, good morning, good morning, good morning. We make sure we've had everyone's voice before we say, okay, everybody have a great day. So that has helped to promote the team concept, even though we're actually not together. So your culture can be sustained even if you're working off-site. And that becomes something we need to bear in mind as we talk about who needs to come back to the office while working for the company. I learned something some years ago called the out of office office. That concept to me is here to stay. And I thank you very much. And CIPM, this to me has actually been a great learning experience. And I thank CIPM and the leadership for putting this together for me to actually engage and have ideas with and learn a lot more from Engineer Badmus, Dr. Nuyebaro, and Omolola Eson. Thank you very much. And Henrietta, over to you. And for our audience as well, thank you very much for your great participation. Okay,
thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you so much to everyone, just like Mr. Victor Banjo has said. Very quickly, I'd just like to tell us to please stay tuned to all of our social media platforms. We have a lot more interesting sessions coming up. And also to say, finally, as copied from our facilitators for today, HR, always remember to remain a beacon of hope for your organization. And also be patient so as not to be a patient. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Noye. Engineer Jamil, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.